week's parsha is Parshas Vayechi, and we are Be'ezus Hashem holding at the second shir of Parshas Vayechi, Revi'i, Perek Mem Tes Pasuk Aleph. So, Parshas Vayechi really discusses the final moments of Yaakov Avinu. What we saw up until this point is that when Yaakov Avinu realized that his end was near, he immediately called for Yosef and requested from Yosef that after he die, Yosef be in charge to make sure that he's going to take his body and he's going to bury him in Hebron. He's going to bury him with Leah. He's going to bury him in the Ma'aras HaMachpelah. And he required Yosef not only tzizugin and libubin, but a shvua, benekitas chayfetz, to ascertain that this was going to play itself out. The pasuk continued and said that when Yaakov realized that it was the very, very, very end, he was already sick, he couldn't get off his bed, Yosef came together with his sons Ephraim and Manasseh and had this final encounter together with Yaakov. And a lot of things happened. It's pasuk after pasuk after pasuk. All of it is famous. When you try to put it together, timeline-wise, it seems that the first thing Yaakov Avinu told Yosef was that, I had this very, very unique and very special bracha that the Eibishter gave me when I was en route from Padan Aram back to Eretz Canaan. Kadosh Baruch Hu told me that Shvatim were going to come from me. Kadosh Baruch Hu told me that my descendants would have an achuzas olam in the land of Canaan. Second thing he tells him is Ephraim and Manasseh Keruvein v'Shimon Yirli, which the Rishonim understand was the moment that Yaakov Avinu took the Bechorah from Ruvain and gave it instead to Yosef. Hence, Yosef would have a double portion in the world of Shvatim, specifically in the Yerusha of Eretz Yisrael, but it was Negeya other things as well. So that Yosef is not one Shevet, he's two Shvatim, through his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. What about Yosef's other sons, if he would have other sons? Rabban said for sure. What about Yosef's other sons? No. Al Shem Machayim Yikaru B'Nachal Asam. But a Pishnayim Al Kapanim, that was something that Yosef got. Then Yaakov Avinu started giving brachas. He gave Yosef a bracha. What was the bracha he gave Yosef? Hamalach hagoy loisim mikol ra. Then he gave Ephraim and Manasseh brachas. What was the bracha that he gave Ephraim and Manasseh? B'cha yivarech Yisrael leimar yisimcha elikim ke'Ephraim uchim Manasseh. Either way, the Torah went through in great detail that final encounter between Yaakov and Yosef. By the way, we skipped the Va'ani. That was also part of the equation. The very famous, one pasuk, but the very famous Va'ani. Either way, now Yaakov Avinu, again, he's on his deathbed. It's literally the final moments of his life. He now is going to turn his attention to his other sons. So one of the themes of the story of Yaakov Avinu is favoritism. And the truth is, mamish, at the final moments, Yaakov Avinu is doubling down. First he meets with Yosef, and he gives him a special bracha. Yosef's children, Ephraim and Manasseh. Now Yaakov is going to go to the rest of the family. He's going to call them together, and he's going to give them brachas as well. What we're going to learn today is what's famously known, at least in the Chassidish yeshivas, as the Berchas Yaakov. And we're going to go through now chapter and verse, literally pasuk after pasuk, the brachos, quote unquote, as we'll see, that Yaakov Avinu gave his children. Says the pasuk, Vayikra Yaakov el banav. So Yaakov called his sons, Vayomer, and he said, Hey Asfu, gather together, Vagido lachem, and I want to tell you, Esa sheyikra eschem ba'achros hayomim, what is going to happen to you in the end of days. Two things. Number one, the Rashbam says that Yaakov Avinu didn't just call his sons. Pashid, he called his sons, Vayikra Yaakov el banav. The Rashbam says, Hey Asfu, means gather. If all he was calling was his 12 sons, it wouldn't be an asifa, right? What's an asifa? Where you have a big ballroom and people are coming and you have perenches and you have chavaidim outside telling people make a left, you can't make a right, VIP parking, right? That's what an asifa is. It sounds like, says the Rashbam, this was an asifa. And the reason is, ki shivim nefesh higdilu be'elu shva esrei shana v'nasu amrav. He said because the 70 people that was the family of Yaakov Avinu when they descended upon Mitzrayim had turned into Vayifru Vayir B'Moed. It turned into this very, very large nation. And Yaakov Avinu, says to Rashbam, wasn't just calling his children, he was calling the ganze mishpacha. So everybody is there. And that's the Lashon Hey Asfu. It's Milashon Asifa. You don't have to gather a small group of people, says the Rashbam. You have to gather a large group of people. But either way, so he calls the entire extended family together and he says, I want to tell you, what's going to happen to B'Yachas HaYom. Everybody knows Rashi. Rashi says, Bikish Legalas HaSaketz. When Yaakov Avinu said, I want to tell you what's going to happen B'Achras HaYomim, he meant it literally. He wanted it to be Megala when Achras HaYomim is going to be. The day that it's that day that he wanted to reveal. However, but he lost his Shechina, and instead of being Megal V'Kates, he started saying other things. In other words, Yaakov Avinu is about to give the Birchas Yaakov, but it was plan B. It wasn't plan A. Plan A was, Hey Asfu V'Agidu Lochem Esa Sheyikra Eschem B'Achras HaYomim. All of a sudden, Yaakov Avinu lost his capacity to be able to be Megal V'Kates. Nistalka Mimenu Shechina. So instead of revealing the Kates, what was the Dvar Macherim? What we know as the Birchas Yaakov. This is an idea that we're going to get back to Be'ezer Hashem in the Rei. Either way, he continued. He said, he kofzu. V'shimu b'nei Yaakov, v'shimu el Yisrael avichem. This feels a little redundant, right? He kafzu, again, come together and listen b'nei Yaakov. V'shimu, listen el Yisrael avichem, to what your father Yisrael, what your father Yaakov has to say. We're going to get back to this pasuk in the raid as well. Either way, Yaakov goes to work. And he's going to single out each one of his sons, and he's going to give them parting words. Who does Yaakov begin with? His Bechar. He begins with his oldest son, Reuven. Says Yaakov, Reuven, Bechar Riyata, you're my Bechar. Koichi, you're my strength. Verashis Oini, and you're my first strength. Rashi says, Oini means Koichi. So really, Koichi and Oini are synonyms of each other. What does it mean that Reuven was Koichi, he was Rashis Oini? He was his first strength. He came from the Tipa Rishayna. He was the Bechar. In fact, Rashi says, you see from here, Shaloi Ra Keri Miyamav. The Yaakov Avinu was never Raya Keri, so Reuven was literally his Reishis Oini. Yes, it's Se'es v'Yesa Oz. Because of the fact that you're the Bechar, so really you were entitled to more Se'es and more Oz. Literally, you should have gotten more Gedula, you should have gotten more strength. Rashi says, yes, Se'es is also kinoi for kahuna. What does se'es have to do with kahuna? Because one of the things that a kohen does is nesias kapayin, hiduchens, and oz is a reference to malchus. The pasuk says v'yitein oz lemalkoi. So what Yaakov was telling Reuven is that you're the bechar, you're koichi v'reishasayni, and because of that, you should have gotten more than your brothers. You should have gotten kahuna, you should have gotten malchus, but you're not going to get it, Reuven. Pachas kamay maltoisar, because you acted in haste. You acted with a behola, says Rashi. It's for that reason that you're not going to get more than your brothers. Ki olisa mishke ve'avicha. What was the thing that Reuven did in haste? What he did is he engaged in the chet of Bilah. Ki olisa mishke ve'avicha is, again, code word for the story of Bilah. And when you went ahead and you did the Maisa of Bilah, chilalta, you were mechalal, you defiled, yitzui Allah. So this is a little bit of a tricky word. So Rashi says what it means is that the Shechina used to come on my bed. So the inyan that was Allah al yitzui, which is the Shechina, chilalta, you went ahead and defiled, you were mechalal, and it's for that reason you're supposed to be the Bechar, and as a result, yes, it's Eitz v'Yeser Oz, you're going to get Kuni, you're going to get Malchus, Al Toisar. These are things you're not going to get. So, Reuven is the first one who's waiting to hear his bracha. And he gets anything but a bracha. What he got was patch. That's what he got. Yaakov doesn't give him a bracha. There's no bracha that Yaakov gives Reuven. To the contrary, what he tells him is, you're going to be punished. The punishment is that you were supposed to be the one that's going to get more. You were supposed to have Yeser Se'es, Kahuna. You were supposed to have Yeser Oz, Malchus. you're the Bechor, right? But you are not going to get that. And the reason you're not going to get that is Ki alisa mishkevei avicha, because of the story with Bilhah. So just a few things. Number one, so you see from this pasuk that Ruvain was supposed to have kahuna, he was supposed to have malchus. Now ultimately, kahuna came from Levi, and malchus came from Yehuda. But really, both of those things were supposed to come from Ruvain. That's interesting. Additionally, this is something we spoke a lot about yesterday, in Mikra Yotzim Midei Pshuta, Ruvain lost the Bechira also. So, to have the Pishnayim Benachla, like Yosef ultimately got, Ephraim and Menashe, Ruvain, V'Shimon, Yirli, it's Pashut, he lost that as well. So if you think about it, Ruvain really lost three things. He loses the Bechira, that's obvious. He loses the Kahuna, and he loses the Malchus. And they all go to different people. The Bechira goes to Yosef, the Kahuna goes to Levi, and the Malchus goes to Yehuda. Now, why did Ruvain lose these things? Because of the story of Bilhah, which in and of itself is very interesting. Because Chazal say, Ruvain chata einei alataya. So really, you have to reconcile this a little bit. Again, the pasuk says, Vayishkav. So in the Pshutei Shal Mikra, clearly something happened. But we spoke about the Ramah and the dream and the Chidah, right? This is an Indian that we talked a lot about in Parshas Vayishlach. But Lemaisa, you see that the story of Bilhah, whatever it was, comes back to haunt Ruvain. Ad Kedei Kach, he loses everything. Think about what he lost out because of this Maisa of Bilhah. A Maisa that Chazal say, Kol ha'omer Ruvain chata einei alatayav. This is definitely something that is interesting. Either way, Ruvain did not get a bracha. To the contrary, what Ruvain got was rebuke. He got teichacha, and Ruvain was told not what he's gonna get, but what he's going to lose. The next in line was Shimon. Now, it's interesting, Yaakov doesn't just talk to Shimon, Yaakov lumps Shimon and Levi together. Shimon v'Levi Achim. He says, Shimon and Levi, you're one and the same. Achim, right? Bridas, literally, but you have Bridashaft. You're literally one and the same. Says Rashi, says the Ramban, each one in his Nusach. And as a result, I don't have to single each one of you out, because you're literally Shtayim Shein Achas. So he turns to Shimon and Levi and he tells them, number one, Klei Chamas Mecheroseim. Mecheroseim means weapons. Rashi says it means Klei Zayin. Your weapons are Klei Chamas, are Giganvita weapons. What does that mean? It's because Yaakov was immediately alluding to Shimon and Levi that he was very disappointed at them for two things that they engaged in. Number one, the fact that they wiped out the city of Shechem. It was not okay. Remember in Parshas Vayishlach, Yaakov was very, very stark with Shimon and Levi. Shimon and Levi responded. We mentioned that Yaakov didn't say one word. He waited until the Birchas Yaakov, he waited until Parshas Vayechi to tell Shimon and Levi what he thought. And it's happening now in real time. Klei Chamas Mecheroy saying, he says, the fact that you went ahead and you used literal weapons, you were roitzchem, you killed, that's Klei Chamas. Who did he steal it from? Chamas means to steal. Who did they steal it from? They stole it from Esav. This is Esav. Al Char B'Chatichya. And the fact that you're going ahead and you're using Esav's Geschäft, it's like a gun with the business. I'm very disappointed at you. What was the second time? The second time was with Yosef. Rashi makes a cheshbon that the Iker brothers that engaged the Mechiras Yosef were Shimon and Levi, and this is now Teichacha over the Mechiras Yosef. He continued. He said, Besoidam al tavai nafshi, b'kahalam al teichad kavoidi. Besoidam, when you're going to get together and you're going to talk discreetly and you're going to conspire, al tavai nafshi, I don't want my name to be mentioned. And b'kahalam, and when you're going to gather together, al teichad kavoidi, I don't want my covet to have any yichud over there. I don't want to get any shout outs when you're going to be doing these things. Rashi says this is referring to two things that were going to happen in the future. One through the descendants of Shimon and one through the descendants of Levi. Again, we're lumping them together. But one through Shimon, one through Levi. Shimon is Zimri, the whole story of Zimri. Zimri was the Nasi of Shevet Shimon, and the Bekaholam al Teichad Kavoidi is referring to Kairach, who of course came from Shevet Levi. And Yaakov Avinu said that when the story of Zimri is going to be mentioned, I don't want it to be, oh, Zimri comes from Shimon, who comes from Yaakov. Please leave me out of it. And the same should be true with Kairach. Ki ba'apam hargu ish, he continued and he said, with your anger, you went ahead and you killed an ish. That's referring to Shechem, uvritzaynam ikru shar, and with your will and your desire, you went ahead and you uprooted a shar. It's referring to Yosef, who's the Bechar shar. Because of what you did. Arur apam kiyaz. I'm not giving you a bracha. Arur, I'm cursing you. Arur apam kiyaz. Now Rashi says that even though it says arur, but at the same time, Yaakov only cursed their af. I'm cursing your anger. Chalila, he never cursed the Gavra. The Evrasam ki kashasa, your anger, which is very hard. Achalkein b'Yaakov. Additionally, I'm going to spread you out amongst Yaakov, va'afitzim b'Yisrael, and you're going to be spread out, dispersed amongst the Jewish people. Rashi says, tu pshatim, what it means, achalkim b'Yaakov, va'afitzim b'Yisrael. One pshat Rashi says is that what Yaakov was telling Shimon and Levi is because you're brothers, and because you've banded together to do bad things, it's for that reason I'm going to separate you. Achalkim b'Yaakov. I'm going to separate you. How so? Because Levi, we know, is separate. They were counted separately, right? V'lo yishev Levi bilvad, like the Rambam delineates in the end of Hilchos Shmita v'Yovel. Levi doesn't do a lot of the things that the rest of Klal Yisrael does, and vice versa. What was the oimik of taking Levi and separating Levi from the rest of Klal Yisrael? It wasn't so much separating Levi from all his brothers, it's separating Levi from Shimon. And that's the Achalkim b'Yaakov. If you look at the Ramban learns Pshat and Achalkim b'Yaakov that way as well. It's one of Rashi's two Pshatim. It's the way that the Ramban learns. In Pshutei Shel Mikra, it's beautiful. I feel like your brothers and bad has come from it. Memela Achalkim. I have to separate you. So right now I'm lumping you together. In the future you're not going to be lumped together anymore. Achalkim b'Yaakov. This is a separation I have to make. If you remember, Rashi said in Parshas Miketz, when Yosef knew he had to take one of the two brothers and he had to incarcerate him, right, to take him as collateral before they bring Binyamin, who did he take? He took Shimon. Rashi said, why? Because he wanted to separate Shimon and Levi. He was being Mekayim Achalkim b'Yaakov. That's what he was doing. This was the chachma of his father as well, that Shimon and Levi can't be together. Because Hine ma toivu manoyim sheves achim gam yochad. There's a synergy that comes together, when brothers come together, but sometimes it's a negative synergy. And in this case, Achalkim b'Yaakov, have to separate them. Rashi says another pshat, Achalkim b'Yaakov was more like a good old-fashioned oynish. And the oynish is that whereas all the brothers are going to have a nachla in Eretz Yisrael, Levi is going to not have a nachla in Eretz Yisrael, and even Shimon is going to be aniyim, the seifrim, umalamdei tinoikis, and they're going to have to spread out, and they're going to go teach Torah, but the point is they're not going to have menucha in Eretz Yisrael, and this is all part of the punishment that Shimon and Levi are going to get. So Shimon and Levi are up second and third, and Shimon and Levi, like Ruvain, do not get a bracha in the Birchas Yaakov. What they get is teichacha. Why are they getting teichacha? They're getting teichacha, it's interesting, for two things that they did and two things that they're going to do, right? So the two things that they did is Shechem and Yosef. The two things that are going to happen in the future that get a shout out here are the story of Zimri and the story of Kairach. What's the punishment? Arur, number one. Just the word arur. Wow, that's the antithesis of Baruch. And Achalkim b'Yaakov va'afitzim b'Yisrael. That is the fate of Shimon the Levi over here in the Birchas Yaakov. So now Yaakov shifted his attention to Yehuda. And he said, Yehuda, ata yoiducha checha. Rashi, again, if you learned in the Chassidish Yeshiva, every one of these Rashis is famous. But we'll say it again. Famously says that when Yehuda saw that Ruvain, instead of getting brachas, got teichacha, and Shimon and Levi, instead of getting brachas, got klolus. So Yehuda said, this is not really working the way we thought this was going to work. So as soon as Yehuda sees what happened to Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, so Yehuda started going backwards. He says, you know something? I think I have somewhere to go. I just realized I have a meeting. I'll catch you a little bit later, right? Let me know how this goes. He starts walking back. So Yaakov calls him back and he says, Yehuda Ato, you're different. You're different. You, yoiducha achecha, dam bride gaindich loibin, right? Your brothers are going to praise you. Yotcha ba'iruf ayvecha. You're going to be so strong. Your hand is going to be at the nape, at the neck of your enemy. Yishtachavu l'cha b'nei avicha. All your brothers are going to bow down to you. Gur Aryeh Yehuda. Yehuda, you're going to be like a lion. Now Rashi says a gur is a cub. It's like a baby lion. An Aryeh is already a fully developed lion. And Rashi says that they're both references to David HaMelech, who when he was younger, he was already a prodigy. And then eventually, of course, he became David HaMelech. But Yehuda is compared to a gur and he's compared to an Aryeh. Miteref B'ni Alisa. So there's an interesting Rashi over here. Rashi says, what does it mean, Miteref B'ni Alisa? Mimasha chashadeticha b'toroiv toiraf Yosef chayera achalasu silaktos atzmacha v'amarta ma'betza. So Miteref B'ni is referring to the fact that Yaakov thought that his son Yosef had been trampled, but ultimately, Elisa, you got out of it because you were the one that said Mabetza, and it's for that reason you absolved yourself from having any blood on your hands with regards to the story of Mechiras Yosef. Kara Ravatz Ka'aryeh, you are going to lie like a lion, Ukalavi. A lavi is a female lion, a lioness. Miyakimenu, that no one's able to get up. So again, the theme is Gur Aryeh, Ukalavi. Yehud is compared to a lion. First a cub, then a lion, and then even a lioness. What's this idea of you're a lion? The lion is the king of the animal kingdom, right? He said in Mefurish. And this malchus that you're going to have is something you're always going to have. Gesetzgebers are always going to be from your family. And this is something that's going to be true until Mashiach is going to come, who's going to gather together all the nations. Additionally, Oisri, Lagefen, you're going to take your donkeys and you're going to tie them to a vine, a grapevine. So what does this mean? So Rashi says this means two things. The first thing that it means is that the grapevines are going to be so big and so strong that if Yehuda's Shevet is going to want to take their donkeys and tie it to a grapevine, you're going to need one grapevine for a donkey. Usually you would think you would need more. A grapevine is flimsy. But no, it's going to be very, very strong. Additionally, a chamar, a donkey carries things, right? That's what you do to a donkey. You load the donkey. So if you're going to load a donkey, one grapevine per donkey, because they're going to be so big. So Oisri Lagef and Ira, it means both things, says Rashi. Seireka is the branch that comes from the grapevine, and the B'nai Soina is referring to like the smaller donkey. So the bigger donkey is going to attach itself to this geffen, and the smaller one to the laseireka. It's the same thing. Kibeis bayayin lavushay. You're going to have so much wine in your chelik that you're literally going to do the laundry with wine. Ubedam anavim. Susai, Rashi says, is a type of beged. Again, you're going to wash your beged with the dam anavim, the blood that comes from anavim. Again, the grape juice. Your eyes are going to be bloodshot from all the wine that you're going to drink. And your teeth are going to be white from all the milk that you're going to have. So Yehuda is the first one of the brothers that actually gets a bracha. And the bracha that he gets is incredible. Right? Now, if you break it down, it's really made up of three things. Number one, he's told that you're going to be king. You're going to be like the lion. The lion is the king of the animal kingdom. You're going to be the king of the Shvatim. Even David Malka Mashiach is going to come from you. Which, of course, we know. The Melachim, David HaMelech came from Yehuda. Yehuda was Zoicha to Malchus. Additionally, he was very, very strong. Right? So, he's strong, which, by the way, is also the mashal of the lion. The lion is the king because he's the strongest. I mean, the two are really one. But the point is, you're going to be king. Additionally, you're going to be very strong. And then, at the end, he's also told that you're going to produce the best wine in the country and also good milk. Zavas Chalav Dvash is a very big part of Eretz Canaan. Wine and milk is going to come from you as well. So again, Ruvain, Shimon, and Levi got Teichacha. Yehuda is the first one of the brothers that actually gets a bracha. It's interesting. You see from what we learned already up until this point, that at the end of the story, Yaakov Avinu knew what had happened with the Mechiras Yosef. Now this is something that we could have spoken about in Parshas Vayechi. It's something we could talk about maybe at the end of Parshas Vayechi. Maybe we will. But I think you have to give it a shout out here because it's a recurring theme in these Rashis. And that is, did Yaakov Avinu ever know what really happened to Yosef? I mean, from Yaakov's part, maybe Yosef was on his way to Shechem and he got kidnapped. And he ends up in Mitzrayim. You think Yosef told Yaakov what happened? You have to learn Hilchas Shmir Salash, and it's not mistaber that he would have done that. Did the brothers tell Yaakov? Maybe they had to ask him Mechila, right? This is a little reminiscent of the Chuvas Noida B'Yehuda and Erechaim Simon Hey, right? Maybe he owes him a Mechila, Ben Adam Lechaveiroi. But that was the Noida B'Yehuda's psak there. So it could be they felt as part of their tshuva they had to tell Yaakov. It's not mefurish in the psukim, but it is clear from here that Yaakov knows everything that happened. He knows Shimon and Levi are the primary instigators. He knows Yehuda said Mabetza, right? It's mefurish. Shimon and Levi are the ones that get this tremendous teichacha. Rashi keeps on saying it's related to the story Mechiras Yosef. By the way, we spoke about this Ramban in Parshas Vayishlach. When Rashi went through Shimon Velevi, so Rashi straddled a whole bunch of ideas. Shem, and then Mechiras Yosef, and then Zimri, and then Kairach. If you go through the Ramban says Mechiras Yosef, Mechiras Yosef. No, sorry, he says Shem. I take that back. He explains the whole parasha related to Shem. Every aspect of it was related to Shem. That was the Ramban. Scratch. But the bottom line is that you see that he knows Shimon and Levi are the primary instigators, right? And then when it comes to Yehuda, the way Rashi taich mi teref b'ni alisa, that's like a shout out to the fact that I know Yehuda, you're okay. I know you're fine. Because you're the one that said Mabetza, even though when Yehuda said Mabetza, Ein Zeh Mevarech Elo Menayitz, again, in Yonim that we spoke about already. But the bottom line is that it seems like Yaakov is very in tune to what happened over here. The question is, who told him? Like, how exactly did this play itself out? It's one of the fascinating postscripts to the stories that are going on here in the end of Sefer Bereshis. But either way. So it's Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Who's next? Yisachar, right? It's Yisachar? Nope. Zvulun. Says the pasuk, Zvulun. So Yaakov, instead of turning to Yisachar, right, Yisachar will get to you in a minute. Now it's Zvulun. And he says, Zvulun l'chayf yamim yishkain. You're going to live by the ports. Right? He's going to literally live by the ocean. V'hu l'chayf aniyos. He's going to be by the ports, by the shore where all the ships come. V'yarchasai al tzidain. In Zangrenitz goes until where? Right, his gvul. Goes until where? It goes until Tzidain. Soif gvula yeh samach l'tzidain. That's a place. So Zvulun doesn't get teichacha, right? He can breathe Zvulun because no one's sure how this is going to play out. Now, he's not told he's going to be the lion and he's going to rule and everyone's going to bow down to him and everyone's going to give him haidah. That wasn't what he got. He didn't even get this land that's going to produce amazing wine. He gets a one pasuk bracha. Zvulun l'chayf yamim yishkain, v'hu l'chayf aniyos, v'yarchasei al tzidain. Now, I think if you ask the man on the street, what was Zvulun told? Oh, Zvulun was told that he's going to go on Shifin, right? That's what he was told. He's going to be l'chayf yamim. He's always going to be traveling. That's why, Zvulun is always coming. He's going. Right? That's usually the way you think of Zvulun. Truth is, Rashi doesn't say one word about Zvulun ever going on a boat. It just says that he lives on oceanfront property. He has amazing views. It doesn't say anywhere that he owns a yacht. It doesn't say that. It's not part of the story of Zvulun. In fact, Rashi says, "V'hu l'chayf aniyos" means that because of where he lived strategically, see, he was where all the importing and exporting was going. Right? Think in the old world where you didn't have planes, everything came through boats, and by the boat there was a shuk, there was a huge marketplace over there. And because of the fact that he lived there, he lived by the port, so he's doing geschäften, he's doing business over there. Rashi never says that he goes on the boat. If you look at Targum Onkelos already says, "V'hu yichabesh mechoizim besfinon." He's going to go on his boats and he's going to conquer cities. V'tuv yama yechel, and not just that, the spoils of the sea, like they're going to be pirates almost. That's something that they're going to benefit from. But if you look at Rashi, and we're learning this psukim of Rashi doesn't say a word about him ever going on a boat. He's just doing business with the incoming, with the boats that are coming. He's in a strategic position to be able to transact with them. But in short, what was the bracha that Zvulun got? Zvulun's bracha was that he's going to be a businessman. And it's actually interesting because we're going to go through now, obviously, all the different brothers, and no one else got this bracha. He's the only one that gets this bracha. Zvulun's bracha is he's going to be a soicher. And really, the story of Zvulun being a soicher, it lends itself into the next bracha that Yaakov Avinu was about to give, and that's to his brother Yisachar. So Yaakov then turns his attention to Yisachar, and he says, your brother Zvulun, he's going to be a soicher. Let me tell you what your bracha is going to be. Yisachar, chamor garem. I hope I get this right. A breita eisel, right? You're going to be a donkey that's going to have broad shoulders. Roiveitz bein ha-mishpasayin. A donkey sleeps sometimes, between the mishpasayim, between the gvulim. That's what you're going to do. Rashi says, what does it mean that Yisachar is going to be a donkey, right? I mean, to be a lion, we understand the bracha. What does it mean that he's going to be a chamor? So Rashi says that what it means that he's going to be a chamor is he's going to be soivel ol Torah. Kechamor chazak shematin and oisay masa kaved. A chamor is someone that can carry a very, very heavy load. Yisachar, you're going to carry the load of Torah. The oil of Torah is heavy, and you're going to have have the shoulders, you're going to have the places to be able to carry the oil of Torah. What does it mean? Roivid's bein ha-mishpasayin. So Rashi says the chamor, it travels by day, it travels by night, right? It doesn't have a comfortable home to necessarily go to. So what does he do when he wants to sleep? He just bein ha-tchumim. He finds a little place, and that's where he puts his head down. Yisachar is going to fall asleep by the shtenders. He's not going to go home to some comfortable abode, but rather ala oretz hatotishon, and that's going to be the avoid of Yisachar. So this Rashi already says is not related to Torah. Yisachar saw menucha kitayv. He saw his portion in Eretz Yisrael in the future that it was good. And he saw the land that was sweet. He's going to be a mistapik b'mu'et. He's going to be a samech b'chelka. Yisachar sees that whatever he's going to get is good. Vayechich my lisbal. Yisachar is going to lower his shoulder, literally. Lisbal, to be soivel the oil of Torah. Vayilamas oived. Rashi says he's going to be like an eved to his brothers. He's going to be there for them. He'll be teaching them Torah. He's going to be paskening shilas for them, giving them eitzes and hadracha. That's going to be the avodah of Yisachar. So Zvulun is told that he's going to be oisik b'pragmatya. He's going to be by the shifin, and Yisachar was told that he's going to be soivel the oil of Torah. That's what he's going to do. The Rishonim say that why was Zvulun mentioned before Yisachar? Really, Yisachar was older than Zvulun. It should have been the other way around. It's because in Ein Kemach Ein Torah. Because at the end of the day, how's Yisachar able to just sit and learn? I mean, it's a very idealistic way to live your life. But Lamaisa Kesef Minol, and it can't work. The teretz is he's able to do it because he has a brother Zvulun. And that's why Zvulun's mentioned before Yisachar, because the Hakdama to Yisachar is there being a Zvulun. Zvulun is the one brother that's told he's going to be a businessman, he's going to be a big executive, he's going to be the one that's oisepet prakmatya, he's going to support Yisachar. This is the beauty of Klal Yisrael. Hoyda v'hadar mamish, and Zvulun even is mentioned before Yisachar, because at the end of the day, in Ein Zvulun and Yisachar. And that's why even Moshe Rabbeinu, Parshas Vayechi bracha, when he gave brachas to all the Shvatim, so what did he say? Smach Zvulun b'tzeisecha, and the Yisachar b'yalecha, Zvulun before Yisachar. Because at the end of the day, without a Zvulun, there is no Yisachar. Either way. Yaakov now turns his attention to Dan. And he says, Dan, Yadin Amoy. So what does Yadin mean? So if you don't look in Rashi, you're going to say Yadin, he's going to judge his nation. Rashi says, that's not what it means. Rashi says, Yadin Amoy means Yin Koim Nikmas Amoy. He's going to take revenge. When is Dan going to take revenge from the Plishtim? Kimoy ki Yadin Hashem Amoy. That's a pasuk. The word Yadin can mean to judge, but it could also mean to take revenge. Rashi says Yadin over here means to take revenge. Dan is going to take revenge. Ka'achat Shiftei Yisrael, and he's going to be Ka'achat Shiftei Yisrael. Rashi says two pshat on what this means. One pshat is that all the Jews are going to support Dan. Another pshat is he's going to be kimiyuchid shebeshiftei Yisrael. This is the way the Ramban learns also. He's going to be like the miyuchid. He's going to be mamish like Yehuda. Yehi Dan nachash ali derech. Dan is going to be like a snake that travels on the road. Shvifain, Rashi says, also means a snake ali derech, which means what derech means, also on the road. The snake is very small, right? But it bites the heel of the sus, and it causes the rider to fall backwards. And finally, Yaakov Avinu throws in a tefillah, Lishuascha, Kivisi Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm waiting, I'm hoping for your redemption, I'm waiting for your Yeshua. If you take a look at Rashi from the beginning of Dan until the end of Dan, it's few Rashis. Rashi says that the entire bracha of Dan was referring to one person that was going to descend from Shevet Dan, and that is Shimshon HaGibar. And this is all a reference to Shimshon HaGibar. Shimshon HaGibar was a Gibar, came from Shevet Dan. He took revenge from the Plishtin, and he was like a snake. And Rashi goes and talks about where the nimshal in the story of Shimshon is, that he was Noishech Ikvei Sos Vayipal Roich Vayachar. Shimshon HaGibar said a tefillah. He said a tefillah v'inakma nakam achad b'shnei einai. That's the lishuascha kvisi Hashem. That's the tefillah that Yaakov Avinu mentions over here. But this was all a nevuah for something that was going to happen in the future. It's all a nevuah for what's going to take place with Shimshon HaGibar. Just to mention one line in the Rashbam. The Rashbam says, Don Yadin Amoy, Hamifarshay al Shimshon. Anyone that explains this whole bracha on Shimshon, Lo Yada ba'oimek pshutei shel mikra klal. He doesn't know about oimek pshutei shel mikra. I had to mention that. And he's talking about a Zayda, Rashi, who of course he was a Talmud Muvikin, who's the Gadol, not Hadar, Gadol Hadaris. But we know he had this vikuach with Rashi. He talks about in the beginning of Parshas Vayechi, Yosef about how you learn Chumash and how you learn Oimik Pshutai Shal Mikra. So the Rashbam threw in a pretty sharp zog over here as it relates to done. But the truth is, I think it's kedai to mention something. Again, it's one of the themes of the Bרכas Yaakov. Instead of mentioning all the themes in one shot, we're dispersing them a little bit. Chalkim b'Yaakov. But just to mention one of the themes that repeats itself here, and that is, the pasuk began when Yaakov Avinu was giving his bracha. He said, "Hey asfu v'agid lochem es asher yikra eschem b'achros hayamim." And then all of a sudden, but you see throughout the brachas, there are a lot of things in the future that Yaakov Avinu was talking about, right? There's no question about that. He mentioned Zimri, he mentioned Kairach, he talks about Ad Ki Yavai Shila, he talked about, right? Malka Mashiach, now you have Shimshon Agiba. The whole done is something Asher Yikra Eschem. Now it's not Achris Hayamim. It's not being Megal the Kates. But don't think that Yaakov Avinu lost the Shechina, he lost his Ruach HaKodesh. There is intense, heavy Ruach HaKodesh going on over here. Yaakov Avinu was talking about all these things that Al Piderech HaTeva he has no business knowing about or talking about. So there's a lot of being Megala that's happening. It's just not the Kates. That Nekuda, being Megala the Kates, that's something that Yaakov Avinu lost his capacity to do. Either way. Next, son. God. God, we're not going to teach in Yiddish because I forgot how. But God Gidud Yigudenu V'hu Yagud Akev, one of the great tongue twisters of all time. But either way, God Gidud Yigudenu V'hu Yagud Akev. In English, which I didn't know many years ago, the word Gidud means troops. So God is troops who will troop, and he will troop backwards, something along those lines. What is this referring to? So Rashi says it's also referring to one specific episode that's going to happen in the future, that's going to come with the chelik of God, and that is when the Yidden are going to cross the Yarden, they're going to go into Eretz Canaan. So God is going to lead the way. He's going to lead the way, and it's because God and Reuven and Chatzashev and Menashe, they wanted to be Be'ever HaYarden, and they made the Tanai, the Bnei Gad, the Bnei Reuven together with Moshe. And what was the deal? The deal was, you want to settle Ever HaYarden, that's fine, but you're going to have to lead the way, and then you're going to be able to come back. So Yaakov Avinu sees this Baruch Kachai, and he mentions it. He says that you're going to lead the way, and by the way, that's the end of the pasuk. For who Yagud Akev, that the end of the deal is going to play itself out. You'll be Zaycha to go back to Ever HaYarden, and Rashi says, for who Yagud Akev, you're going to be B'Shleimas, you're not even going to lose one fighter. So God was on the front lines when the Yidden entered Eretz Canaan, and Lamaisa they had 0 casualties. Asher. May Asher Shmeina Lachmai. From the land of Asher, the bread is going to be very, very fat. Fatty. V'hu yitein madane melech, and he's going to be presenting delicacies to the king. Rashi says what this means is the food, the fruit, specifically the olives, are going to be very oily and very fatty, so that whenever you're going to want to give a gift to the king, where you're going to take the gift, you're going to take it from Asher. Rashi says that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he gave the brachas and Parshas Vayechi bracha, he spoke about Asher. He said, "V'toivel b'shemen ragloi." This idea that shemen, the good oils, came from Asher. Rashi actually quotes a Gemara Masechtas Menachos. So coming up as Hashem around the corner, that the best shemen lemenachos came from Chelkoi Shel Asher. This was in the Bרכas Yaakov. It was in the Bרכas Moshe as well. Naphtali. What about Naphtali? Ayala shlucha. So an ayala is a female deer. So Naphtali is going to be like a female deer that's shlucha, right? It's sent out. It runs very, very fast. Hanoisein imrei shafer, and it gives a good tidings. That's literally what this means. Rashi says that what the pasuk is referring to are the peiros that grew bechelka shel Naphtali. Specifically the peiros of the bika of Ginoiser that the Gemara talks about in different places. That was kala levashal peirosel. The fruit used to ripen very, very quickly. Ka'ayala zu shehi kala loretz. Like the ayala that runs very quickly. So what's the mashal of the ayala? It's not that the chevra of Naphtali know how to run the 40 in 4.3. That's not what this means. What it means is that the peiros were peiros that used to grow very, very quickly, and it's similar to the bracha of Asher. Asher was told Shmeina Lachmai. What Naphtali was told was, you're going to have good peiros. What does it mean? Hanoisin imrei shafer. So Rashi says Ketargumai. Take a look what the Targum says. The Targum says, and Hanoisin imrei shafer, that these will be peiros that Yehoin Moidan umevarchen aleihoin. The people are going to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're going to give brachas. They're going to give brachas on these peiros. We have a raid bite from Once Upon a Time from my good friend Levi Chamsky, a Torah that he heard from a guy in Rameir Soloveitchik. in his Chumash here live. But the point is that you see from here a little bit of a remes to Birchas Hanenin. Birchas Hanenin is the Rabbanon. Meir said that even though Birchas Hanenin is the Rabbanon, but the Chefza of Birchas Hanenin is the Raisa, similar to Reb Chaim and Sefer that said even if you hold Tefillah is the Rabbanon, the Shittas Ramban, but the Chefza of Tefillah is the Raisa. Again, this is Noisin Imre Shafer Taka, Divrei Pichachim Chein, rate that we spoke about in the past. Either way, so Yaakov went through the brothers, Ruvain, Shimon and Levi together, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun is 6 if you're counting, Dan, Gad, Asher, and Naphtali. So we already counted 10. Who's left? The Bnei Rachel. Who's left is Yosef and Binyamin. So Yaakov turns his attention to Yosef first. And he says, Ben Poiros Yosef, Ben Poiros Alayoin. Rashi says, what does it mean, Ben Poiros, right? Ben Porat. It means Ben Chein. He said, you have a tremendous amount of Chein. Ben Poiros Alayoin. Anyone that looks at you sees how much Chein you have. In fact, Bonois Sa'ada Alei Shur. There's a lot of Rashis here. But Rashi's main shot is that the girls, the daughters of Mitzrayim, they used to climb to the top of the wall just to get a glimpse at you, to see how handsome you are. Right? Yosef was Yefei Tayar or Yefei Mara. So just to see how handsome you are, the Bonois with Sa'ada Alei Shur. This pasuk is a little bit of a postscript to the whole story of Eshes Potifar. Right? It's Aniyah b'makam echad and Ashir b'makam acher. You see how handsome Yosef HaTzadik was. Vayemoreruhu, stating that Yosef, there were people, Yaakov tells him, that gave you a very, very bitter life. V'roibu, there were people that fought with you. Vayistemu, and there were people that hated you. Who were these people? Balei chitzim, Balei lashon hara, people that spew hatred with the arrows that come out of their mouth. Vateshev be'esan kashtoi, stating that you were able to stay strong. Not only were you strong, but what you merited was, Rashi says, this is a reference to the fact that Paroi took his tabas, remember in Parshas Miketz, and he put it on the finger of Yosef. So not only did you stay strong, not only didn't you fall and crumble because of all these people that were hating on you, but to the contrary, you were strong. And not only were you strong, you rose to Gedula. How did this happen? Midei Aver Yaakov. Midei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Aver Yaakov. It came because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Misham, it was from there that you not only were able to find strength, but you became a Raya. You became the shepherd. Yosef. You actually became the melech. You became the one that took care of everybody. And Evan Yisrael, you became like the Evan, the cornerstone of this entire family. So not only did you not crumble and fall because of what happened, but to the contrary, you became the Raya, you became the Evan Yisrael. And how did you become the Raya and Evan Yisrael? It was Midei Aver Yaakov. It was from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mikela Vicha. You got it from the God of your father. V'yazrecha. Now you get to bracha. Rashi says, "V'yazrecha v'hu yazrecha." He should help you. The Eis Shakai. It's because of the fact Rashi says you were with Hakadosh Baruch Hu that you got what you got. V'varchecha, and the Eibishter should bench you. What bracha should you get? Listen to these brachas. Bircha Shamayim Me'al. You should get Mitala Shamayim, right? And Bircha is Tahoim Reivetzes Tachas. And you should get Mishmani Aretz. You should get the brachas of the Tahoim Reivetzes Tachas. From the highest to the high, that's Bircha Shamayim Me'al, to the lowest to the low. That's Tahoim Reivetzes Tachas. Bircha is Shodayim V'Racham. So what do those words mean? So Rashi says Shodayim is Miloshen Dadim, and Racham is Miloshen Womb. So Rashi says that this was a bracha that you should get the bracha of children, that the Scharim will be Masriim, Tipa Haruya Leheroyon, the Nekevis will be Lo Yeshaklu Esrechen Shalahem Hapel Ubreim, V'Yidgul Aroy, right? That's the bracha. The bracha is that you're going to have gebench the children and everything is going to go smoothly. Birchos Avicha, Gavru al Birchos Hoirai. I want you to know, Yosef, Yaakov says, that the brachas of your father, the brachas that your father received. So who's Yosef's father? That's me, right? That's Yaakov. Yaakov is talking. Now, there's the brachas that I got, Gavru, were bigger and stronger than Birchas Haireh, than the brachas that my Eltering God. And Rashi says what this is referring to is that Yaakov Avinu was told, Ufaratz the Yom of a Kedma, Tzafain of an Egma. As opposed to Avram and Yitzchak, they weren't told that. Avram got brachas that you're going to get this, and Yitzchak got brachas that you're going to get that, but the brachas of Yaakov were more encompassing brachas. Rashi is lachas. Lefisha brachas shali gavru at seif gvulei givay soilam. My brachas went without a gvul. Right? Shenasali bracha prutza belim mitzarim. Magaz adalik tzais. As opposed to my father and my Zayda, they didn't get brachas like that. So again, birchas avicha, the brachas that your father got, that I got, were gavru al birchas, right? Were bigger than the brachas that my father and my Zayda got. Ad tavas give us oilam. So what does this mean? So Rashi says ad tavas means ad kitzois. Givos are gvois, are mountains. Meaning my brachas go all the way to the mountains that are on the other side of the world. Now here's the punchline. I'm taking those brachas, tiena l'rosh Yosef. I want them to go on your head, Yosef. Ulukad kait Nazir Echav, and I want them to go on the forehead of who? Nazir Echav, the one brother that was cast aside by his brothers. In other words, you, Yosef. So Yaakov then turns his attention to Yosef, and not surprising, he gives Yosef pishnayim of brachas. With Yosef, he goes and he starts elaborating and embellishing this in an incredible way. I mean, the first thing he says is Yosef, you're special. You're Ben Pyrus Yosef, Ben Pyrus Aliyoyim, Banu Sada Ali Shor. You had a very difficult life, but because of the fact that you stayed close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you were able to be strong. Not just strong, but you became Misham. You were able to become Roya. You were able to become the Even Yisrael. The Anochas Even Apino is you, Yosef. I give you a bracha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu that helped you, v'yazrecha. David that gave you brachas, v'varchecha. What kind of brachas? Birchas Shamayim Meyal, Birchas Tahim Revetzes Tachas, Birchas Shadayim Veracham. You should be a bench with kids also. And then he says, the bracha that I got from Hashem was bigger than the brachas that my father, my Zayda got. And I want those brachas to go to you. Those brachas that I got, Tiyena L'Rosh Yosef, Ulekad Koid Nazir Echav. Again, not surprising. Yaakov Avinu completely lays it on when it comes to Yosef, right? Compare it to what Usher got. Usher said he's going to have fatty food. Naphtali is going to have very, very good fruit. Yosef, Birchas Avicha, Gavra, Birchas Hayrai, Atavas, give us oilam, at the end of the Rosh Yosef. I'm giving it to you, Yosef. Ulukadkain is Erecha. And by the way, Yosef got brachas already. It's not the first time Yosef's getting a bracha. Yosef got his private bracha. But in addition to his private bracha, in this communal setting, he gets this incredible bracha. Either way, the last bracha that Yaakov Avinu had to give was to Binyamin. So he turns to Binyamin, he says, Binyamin ze'ev yitraf. You're going to be like a wolf that's teiref, right? That tramples its prey. In the morning it eats its prey. And then at night it divides the shalom that it caught during the day. That's the bracha that Binyamin gets. Rashi says, what does it even mean? Binyamin's a wolf? Like, what does it mean that Binyamin is a wolf? So this is, again, it's a reference to strength. It's even a reference to leadership and even malchus to a certain degree. In fact, Rashi says that this was a reference to three great Jewish leaders that came from Shevet Binyamin. Shaul HaMelech came from Binyamin, and Mordechai and Esther, who obviously were related, they both came from Shevet Binyamin as well. So this is a reference to that Inyan. So Binyamin is a little on the Yehuda spectrum, right? But Yehuda's Malchus based David. As opposed to Binyamin, he's the Malchus of Shaul. He's the leadership of Mordechai and Esther. Esther's a Malka also. This whole Inyan came from them. Just one last pasuk. Kol Eila Shiftei Yisrael Shnei Masar. V'zois asher diber lehem avihem vayivarech oisam ish asher kibrachasei berach oisam. So the aforementioned are the 12 Shiftei Yisrael, and what we just said now was the bracha that Yaakov Avinu gave them. Ish asher kibrachasei berach oisam, and each person got his own unique bracha. Rashi says that everyone got a bracha, not everybody got a bracha. So Rashi says that you see from here that even though Ruvain didn't get a bracha, and Shimon didn't get a bracha, and Levi didn't get a bracha, but at the same time there was one general bracha that incorporated everybody, the Vayavarech Oisam, and that's not something they were excluded from. That's something that they were included from as well. Either way, this concludes the Birchas Yaakov. So just to do like a little bit of a sikon, right? What happened just now by the Birchas Yaakov? So Yaakov went to each one of his sons, he singled them out, and he gave them a koloimar bracha. Ruvain actually didn't get a bracha. Ruvain was told all the things he's not going to get. You're not going to be the Bechar, you're not going to be the Kohen, you're not going to be the Melech. Why? Because of the story of Bilah. Shimon and Levi, you're one and the same. Shimon and Levi Yachid. That's why they're lumped together. I don't even have to single you out. But as far as Shimon and Levi goes, no brachas for you either, right? And the reason that you're not getting brachas is because of the story of Shechem, because of the story of Yosef. And by the way, Yaakov says, I even see in the future that history is going to repeat itself. There'll be a story of Zimri, there'll be a story of Kairach, and please keep me out of it. I don't want to have anything to do with that. What's their fate? So their fate is that you're losing the Bechayra, you're losing the Kahuna, you're losing the Malchus. They were never supposed to get that in the first place. Ironically, Levi at one point will get the Kahuna, but that's because of something Levi is going to do in the future. Doesn't get any mention or shout out here in the Birchas Yaakov, which is a little bit surprising, right? But the bottom line is that what's their punishment? Number one, Arur. Or Apam, Rashi says, but Arur. Additionally, Achalkim Yaakov Afitzim B'Yisrael. First of all, Shimon and Levi, you can't be Achem anymore. We have to separate you. Number two, you're going to be spread out. You're not going to have Menucha. You're not going to have a proper Nachla in Eretz Yisrael. Yehuda was the first one of the brothers that got a bracha. What was his bracha? He's the lion, right? He also gets a kinui. He's also compared to one of the animals, but it's the animal, right? The king of the lion of the animal kingdom. So he becomes the king. You're going to be strong. Your brothers are all going to bow down to you. Not just that, good wine and good milk are going to come from your territory as well. Zvulin's going to be a seicher. Yisachar is harav and learning. Dan, Shimshon Agibar is going to come from Dan. The interesting lashon that you're going to be ka'achat shiftei Yisrael. So also on the spectrum of Yehuda, a little Yehudadik, and he too is compared to an animal. He's compared to a snake. Yehuda's the lion, he's the snake, but somewhat me'inyan le'inyan ba'is inyan. God is going to be Gedad, but God is going to lead the Jews into Eretz Canaan when they cross the Yad, and He's going to come back safely. That's the one shout out that God gets. Is that a bracha? What is that? But that's the one, maybe the fact that they're going to all come home safely, but that's the one thing that God has told. Asher is going to produce fatty food, specifically oily olives. Naphtali, good fruit. People are going to give brachas on his fruit. Yosef, wow, Yosef gets everything, right? Yosef gets Brich Shemayim Me'al, Birchas Time Revetzes Tochas, Birchas Shadayim V'rocha. My brachas were the best brachas, and Tieno the Rosh Yosef the Kol Gadol Zerechad. He gets everything incredible, and Binyamin's compared to a wolf who's gonna fight. He's gonna rule. Specifically, Shaul, Mordechai, and Esther are going to come from Binyamin. It's interesting. 5 of the Shvatim were compared to animals, right? So when you talk about animals, it's 5 of the Shvatim. Yehuda was compared to a lion. Yisachar was compared to a donkey. Dan was compared to a snake. Naphtali was compared to a female deer. And Binyamin was compared to a wolf. It's a lot of Torah on all these things. But the bottom line is, this is sort of the story of the Bרכas Yaakov. It's just a few haras. The first hara is that the pasuk says, Vayikra Yaakov al banav vayomer he'asvu v'agidol lachem esa sheyikra eschem ba'achas hayam. Yaakov calls all his kids. We said the Rashbam says the entire extended family. I want you to all come together. I want you to all come together, and I want you to now be here while I'm going to go and I'm going to give brachas. I saw in the Shiurim from Rameir Alevi, he brings that the Briskerov asked that why did Yaakov give everyone the brachas in front of everybody else? Should have been a private bracha. Yosef in the beginning of the parasha gets his private bracha. It's my private bracha, right? You would think a father who's lying on his deathbed and he wants to bench his children, so each child comes and he gets his bracha. You'll get your bracha, you'll get your bracha. Why did Yaakov feel that the right way to give the brachas was to do it in a public way? So the Briskerov said something, V'ruyim advarim l'misha amram. He says, we know Klal Yisrael is really one unit. We're one nefesh. We're really one guf. We're made up of different limbs. And the Shvatim represent the respective limbs, and they represent the different koiches and the different tchunas hanefesh that we have as a nation. But let's be honest, said Mar Nagriz, the fact that Yehuda is a lion doesn't just affect Yehuda, it affects all the Shvatim. I'm part of an ummah that has a limb that's a lion. The fact that Binyamin is a Ze'ev, it affects everybody. I'm part of a nation that has a limb that's a Ze'ev. So as much as the brachas are being tailored to each individual shevet, but really they're negeya and they affect all the Shvatim. Every every single member of Klal Yisrael is gebenched by virtue of the specific brachas that each one of the Shvatim got. So if that's the case, said the Briskerov Kumtois, that really the brachas that each Shevet got was Negeya every single member of Klal Yisrael. You see, if we see each Shevet as an individual Shevet, the fact that he's a Gvir has nothing to do with me. And the fact that he's a big Lam, that he's a big Talmud Chacham, well, what do I have from that? And the fact that he's a gebenched person, Vas Hatem et Mir. But when you see Klal Yisrael as one nation, and then you appreciate, wow, there's going to be a chelik of Klal Yisrael that's going to be Oisa Pragmatia. And you know what they're going to do with their money? There's going to be another chelik of Klal Yisrael that's going to sit and learn, and they're going to go ahead and they're going to support that chelik of Klal Yisrael. So you appreciate that every member of this great nation just got gebenched by the fact that there's a Zvulun and there's a Yisachar. It's all a bracha for everybody, said the Briskera. And it's for that reason every member had to be there, because really these were brachas for every single year in Klal Yisrael. The truth is, this Briskera is Kamada Mefurish Rashi. It's Kamada Mefurish Rashi. It's the last Rashi on the Psukim that we learned. So, what was the last pasuk? Kol Eila Shiftei Yisrael Shnei Masar V'zois Asher Diber Lehem Aviem Vayevarech Oisam Ish Asher Kiberchasai Beirach Oisam. Says Rashi, Loi Hoya Loi Loimar Ela Ish Asher Kiberchasai Beirach Oisai. Ma Talmud Loimar Beirach Oisam. Right, this pasuk is talking about the individual bracha that each Shevet got. So each Shevet got an individual bracha. So it should be Beirach Ha'isai. What does it mean, Beirach Ha'isam? The fi shenasan liYehuda Gvura Sari. Ule Binyamin Chatifasei Shal Zev. Ule Naftali Kalusa Shal Ayol. Yochel, you would have thought Shaloi Kilel on Kulam B'Chala Brachas. So you would have thought that Yehuda is only the Ari, and Binyamin is only the Zev, and only Naftali is the Ayola. But you would have thought that Binyamin is not an Ari, and Naftali is not a Ze'ev. Talmud Loima Beirach Oisam, that really the bracha that everybody got affected everybody else. Now you learn this Rashi, it's a very sasam Rashi. It's not clear what Rashi is saying. L'chayra, this Briskerav is the beer, it's the Hezbollah in this Rashi. Because really, all the brachas are negeya every single year. If we can appreciate the fact that we're an Am Echad, that means any bracha that any member of our nation has is really something that's negeya all of us. It's for that reason Yaakov Avinu prefaced, Hey Asfu, I want everyone to be here, because all the brachas that we're going to tile right now are really, really going to be negeya everybody. I saw another beautiful ha'ara, b'shem the Briskerav in the Shimon for Meir Alevi. Pasuk Beis, he kafzu v'shimu b'nei Yaakov v'shimu el Yisrael avichem. So we mentioned it's a redundant pasuk. He kafzu v'shimu, and then v'shimu el Yisrael. Truth is, if you look at Rashi, if you look at the Targum Onkelos says like this: He kafzu iskanoshu ushma'u. So what does v'shimu mean in Aramaic? It means ushma'u. B'nei Yaakov v'kabilu ulfan min Yisrael avuchain. V'shimu el Yisrael means v'kabilu. The Targum Onkelos teaches the two words differently. The first Vishimu is Ushma'u. The second Vishimu is Vikabilu. Why would the Targum Onkelos teach the two words Vishimu differently? Because the Targum Onkelos is bothered with the Priskerov's kasha. Then why does it have to say he kafzu Vishimu b'nei Yaakov? Vishimu al Yisrael avichem. Once you say Vishimu, you said Vishimu already. Why do you have to say it twice? Must be one Vishimu means to listen, and the other Vishimu means to be makabel. By the way, what's the precedent for this? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Listen, derher, be makabel, right? Those are the three taiches of the word Shema that you're supposed to have when you say the word Shema Yisrael. But the bottom line is, if you look in Onkelos taiches the two Vishimus differently. L'chayra, it's because he's bothered. Otherwise, it's going to be redundant. But still, what's these two things? So the Briskerov said, Hafla v'fela. Again, V'ruyin advarim l'misha amram. This parsha is known as the Birchas Yaakov. But the truth is, it wasn't 100% brachas. As a matter of fact, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi didn't get any brachas. What Reuven, Shimon, and Levi got was teichacha. They got klala. In other words, really, the Birchas Yaakov was made up of brachas and it was made up of teichacha. So the Briskerov says, if somebody gives you a bracha, what do? You listen. Listen, and zugomain. But you listen to the bracha. If somebody gives you teichacha, the avoid is not to listen to the teichacha. You have to be makabel the teichacha. You have to internalize it. Yaakov Avinu was doing two things. He was giving brachas and he was giving teichacha. He kafzu v'shimu. His kanosha ushmo. Listen to the brachas I'm going to give. There's going to be teichacha going on here also. And klapi the teichacha, the kabilu ulfan min Yisrael. That's something you already have to be makabel. That's something that requires internalizing. That's these two inyanim. Listen to the brachas and be makabel, internalize the teichacha you're going to get. But I saw a third ha'ara. In the shiur for Meir Alevi. Meir asked, Rashi says, that Yaakov Avinu prefaced, "Hey asu v'agidol lachem es hashiyikra eschem v'achras hayamim. Bikesh legales es haketz v'nestalku mimenu shchina." So, what's the story? Everyone knows this. Yaakov Avinu is very old. He's on his deathbed. He says, "I want to tell my descendants when the bitter gulas is going to come to an end." So he says, "Everybody come." Everybody's hovering over the bed. The visual, according to the Rashbam, is way more dramatic. Standing room only, right? And everyone's trying to listen, and they're squashed. And the Zayd is about to be Megal the Kates, and then all of a sudden, Nistalku mimenu shchina, vehischel oimer dvar macherim, and instead of being Megal the Kates, he started saying different things. So Rameir asked that it sounds like Yaakov Avinu knew when the Kates was. If he knew when the Kates was, why did he wait until he was lying on his deathbed? Now, all of a sudden, he's going to be Megal the Kates, and he missed it by a minute, right? L'chayra, Yaakov Avinu should have been Megal the Kates when he had an opportunity to be Megal the Kates. In the words of Rameir, if Yaakov Avinu feels the right thing is to be Megal the Kates, then be Megal the Kates. Why does it have to be the last second of his life? This is when you're Megal the Kates. If you are tapped in and you know when the Kates is, and you feel that it's an appropriate piece of information to go ahead and share with your family, so share it. Again, we get caught up in the dramatic visual, but why? If you know the Kates, by the next Shabbos table, hey, Osfu, come zusammen, ich will Megala sein the Kates. And it wouldn't have been Nistalka Shechina. It was only Nistalka Shechina because it was Mamish, it was Ba'achris Yomov. So what's going on over here? This was Rameir Alevi Zara. Just want to be Moisef, Ahara, Al-Harasai. And that is, so Rameir goes, and Rameir asked that why did Yaakov Avinu wait until the last second to be Megal the Kates? Very clear. What was Yaakov Avinu's plan B? Yaakov Avinu called the Olam. Why? Called the Olam to be Megal the Kates. Lamaisa didn't work. So because it didn't work, instead he says, okay, everyone's here, right? We're not going to waste a good asifa. We have to be moich about something, right? We got to come up with something we got to do. So you know what? Instead of being Megal the Kates, let me give brachas instead. What's the flow? It didn't work to be Megal the Kates. So instead of that, Zechalifasi, I'm going to instead give brachas. Maybe you could say, and maybe it's Pachet, and for sure maybe this is emes, and it's really based on an Indian that we've spoken about over the years. Just like Yaakov Avinu gave brachas here in the end of Sefer Bereshis, Moshe Rabbeinu gives brachas in the end of Sefer Devarim. Right? The pasuk says, "V'zois habracha asher berach Moshe," and the pasuk says, when it describes Moshe Rabbeinu giving brachas at the end of his life, asher berach Moshe isho Elokim lifnei Moshe. The Vilna Gaon in Aderes Eliyahu says, what does it mean? Isho Elokim lifnei Moshe. Shehu b'mayla gedola ad ma'od. It's because at that moment that Moshe Rabbeinu was lefnei Moshe, he was b'mayla gedola ad ma'od. He had achieved a very, very hard madrega. Shehisig ba'isapam. He was able to be masik at that moment. Something that he wasn't able to be masik his entire life. I'm skipping a little bit. And the Torah wanted to bring out this point. When Moshe is giving brachas now, you should know he's Isha Alikim. And it's happening right before he's dying. An Israel Kim is always not Shaykh. An Israel Kim Lifnei Moisai. You know what kind of madrega he's going to be on? Because Lifnei Moisai, you're going to be on a madrega that's greater than any madrega you've ever been on. And it was then Bircham Yisrael he chose to give the brachas because bevadai he understood Yiskaimu Berchaisa. That if I'm giving the bracha now, because of the madrega that he was on, for sure those brachas were going to be Niskayim. So says the Vilna Gaon, Aderes Eliyahu, V'zois habracha sheberach Moshe, Israel Alikim lifnei Mosai. What's the point? The point is that he's an Israel Alikim. It's lifnei Mosai. An Israel Alikim lifnei Mosai is on such an incredible madrega, and it's for that reason he decided that's the time to give the bracha because bevada yiskaimu berchoisa. The truth is, this Inyan that the Vilna Gaon is miramis to an Aderes Eliyahu, is a mefurish Zohar HaKadosh. The Zohar HaKadosh says as follows: Ditoninon, we've taught. B'shaita de barna shachiv, at the time that a person is about to die. V'dina sharya aloi, and the din is residing over him. L'nafke mehai alma, to be taken out of this world. Itoisiv rucha ilabe. He gets a special ruach al yoina, madalei hava biyoymai, something that he never got during his lifetime. V'kivan the sharya aloi, as soon as that ruach al yoina is shayra on him, v'zdabak be, and it cleaves to him, chomei madalei zacha biyoymai. He's able to see things that he was not able to see during his lifetime. Mishum de itoisev beyahu rucha, and the reason is because of that ruach that's on it. V'kadi itoisev bevachama, and when that ruach comes on him, and he starts seeing the things that he wasn't able to see during his life, Kedei Nafik Mehai Alma, that in and of itself causes him to leave this world. Hado Dechsiv, says the Zohar, that's what the pasuk means when it says, Toisef Rucham Yigvaum Ve'elafaron Yeshufon. It's the Toisef Rucham. It's that Toisefes Ruach that descends upon a person at the end of his life. That's what causes him Yigvaum to die. Ve'elafaron Yeshufon. That's why he leaves this world. Kedei Ksiv. Additionally, that's what the pasuk means when it says, Ki lo yirani ha'adam v'chai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe, nobody could see me and live. You can't see me and live. You could see me and then die. And before a tzaddik dies, he sees HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's able to see things and he's able to know things that otherwise he couldn't see and he couldn't know. That's the Toisef Rucham that happens. Yigvaum Velafarim Yeshuvim. That's Kilayirani Adam V'chai. But at the same time, while a person is dying, at that moment, he's able to see things. This is the Maila Gedoyla Ad Ma'od that Vilna Gaon is talking about, that a person is able to achieve Lifnei Moshe. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu Lifnei Moshe Samach L'Misasa gave the bracha, because Bevada Yiskaimu B'Chaysav. He knew because of that Tosefes Ruach that he had, because of that incredible madrega that he was on, he was going to be able to give brachas, and he was going to be able to give brachas that were going to be Niskayim. Hagoyin Rab W. Weiss Shlita in Megadim Chadashim in Parshas Vayechi, he has a whole arichos on this inyan. It's actually on the pasuk Vayomer Aleim B'mei V'Esem Shana Anochi Hayoim Lo Yuchal Lo Ydatzeis V'Lavai. That was the last day of Moshe Rabbeinu's life. Moshe Rabbeinu said Lo Yuchal Lo Ydatzeis V'Lavai, and Kedarkei B'Kodesh, he has a beautiful arichos with different marmakoimis related to this idea, which is rooted in a Zohar HaKadosh, that a tzaddik, when he's samach l'misasai, toisef rucham, all of a sudden he achieves a incredible madrega. One of the things that Rabbi W. Weiss tells Sue is that the Chassam Sofer, when he was maspid, his great Rebbe, Rab Nosson Adler, so he said, quote, Va'ata lo zachisi lirois behilula demarana. I wasn't zoicha to shed tears on the kever of this Ish Elikim. I wasn't zoicha to be with him. Ki oz, had I been there, who knows what I could have been zoicha to? He's referring to this inyan, because when a person is with a tzaddik, samach l'misasai, what you can be mekabel from the tzaddik is unbelievable. He says, does Reb W. Weiss, that with this maybe you can answer a Marshas Kasha. The Gemara says in Brachas Taf Yud Amud Aleph that David HaMelech saw the Yom HaMisa and he's saying Shira, Baruchi Nafshi Es Hashem. He saw the Yom HaMisa, he saw the fact he's going to die, he said Shira. And Frank the Marsha, Mizmai LeDavid, Kina mi bayale. Why are you singing Shira on the Yom HaMisa? You should have said a Kina. Said Reb David Yoel Weiss. What's the Lashon HaGemara? It doesn't say he saw death. He saw the Yom HaMisa. Because on the Yom HaMisa, Samach L'Misasa, L'fnei Moshe, a person can achieve incredible madregas. And because a person's able to achieve incredible madregas, so it's for that reason when a person finds himself in that situation, wow, it's not shaykh. And when David HaMelech saw what he was going to be zoicha to, Ki lo yirani odem v'chai, but to die and see HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he knew that one day he's going to see the Eibishter. So when he chapped what's going to be one day by the Yom HaMisa, he sang Shira. He said, this gives a different panim to a Gemara, Kedusha Nayim Beis Amud Aleph. The Gemara says, Ki ava nicha nafshei de Rebbe. When Rebbe was passing away, he said, Humne ikka bebavel. And Rashi says, what does it mean? Ki kanicha nafshei nizraka nevuah bepume. All of a sudden he had a nevuah. Why did Rebbe have a nevuah in Kedusha Nayim Beis Amud Aleph right before he's dying? It's because it was Toisef Ruchan. Because Samach L'misasai, he was able to see things that he was never able to see. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, Shmuel HaKatan, Afhu Amar B'Shas Misasai. Right, remember he said some nevuas right before he died. Rashi says, Sheshor Sa'ol of Shechina, V'nisnaba B'Shas Misasai. What's the oimik in that? Says, Agoyin Reb David Yoel Shlita. It's Pashut, it's this Inyan, because L'fnei Moisai, Samach L'misasai, a tzaddik is able to achieve a tremendous madrega. Yaakov Avinu, maybe, would have loved to have been Megala the Kates during his lifetime. But I don't know if Yaakov Avinu knew the Kates. Samach l'misasai. When Yaakov Avinu was already Vayikru Yemei Yisrael Lamos, when Yaakov Avinu was already lying on his deathbed, this was the last moment. The first pasuk of the next year is going to be the Misa of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is literally gasping his final breaths. At that point, it was Samach l'misasai. It was an Israel Ekim l'fnei Moisai. At that moment, he was able to see what he wasn't able to see in the past. All of a sudden, he saw the Kates. So he said, "Hey, Asfu and Bikesh Legalis Esaketz." He lost it. He lost it in 1 second. And the reason is because we weren't supposed to have a Messiah of when Mashiach is supposed to come. We're supposed to wait. And we're supposed to wait when Amunah and Betachin. But the bottom line is could be Avada. Had he known it earlier, he would have been Megalid earlier. Yaakov Avinu saw the Kate Mamish Ba'achris Yamav. But when Yaakov Avinu realized that it's Achris Yamav, and I lost my capacity to see the Kate and to reveal it, but it was still Israel Likim Lefnei Moisai. So what's the second thing you do? He did what Moshe Rabbeinu was going to do in the future. Bircham Yisrael, because Bevada Yiskaimu Birchaisa. Because these are the two inyanim that a tzaddik has Lefnei Misasai. You're able to see this Toisef Rucham is Negeya Brachis. These are the inyanim that a person comes to Samach Misasai. A tzaddik Israel Likim La Yaakov Avinu. The initial reaction was, let me be Megal the Kates. The plan B is not like, instead of doing this, let me do that. It's Mei Inyan Inyan Ba'isa Inyan. There's a Toisef Rucham right now. That's what's going on with Yaakov Avinu. And Yaakov Avinu is tapping into that Toisef Rucham. And L'chatchila Yaakov says, let me be Megal the Kates. What was the plan B? What was the second Inyan? The second Inyan was, let me instead give a brachas. Shuvro Yisi. It's a Mefurish Abar Benel. This Abar Benel, I didn't see it in Parshas Vayechi, I was looking, but it's in Parshas V'zois HaBracha. The Abar Benel says as follows: Moshe Rabbeinu gave his bracha lefnei Moisai. Why lefnei Moisai? Sha'ashleimim be'esi parei nafsha migufam oz yagiu l'maylo yoyser al yoyna u'k'moisha amar ki lo yirani adam v'chai b'chayeyem einam royim b'misasam royim. The Barbanel is quoting that Zoya that we mentioned earlier. I'm skipping 2 pages. You find by Yitzchak. Sha'amar le'esav. Yitzchak told Esav, Ba'avur tavarechecha nafshi b'terem amos. Sha'amar zaledaitoi. Sha'oz tia nafshi ba'oifem min advekos. Yitzchak wanted to give brachas before he died because he knew that then his nefesh would be very davik. If his nefesh is so davuk, well then his brachas are going to be more effective. Like the Goyen said in Aderes Helio. The Rivka Ishtoi, Lahaskim Lozeh. Rivka was maskim. Hisifa b'dvarav. Besipra oisam liyakiv. Va'amra va'avarechecha lefnei Hashem lefnei Moisi. Hine hisifa lefnei Hashem. Lefi shenafshe be'esahi lefnei Hashem tamoy. U'boy sidbak. V'chein Yaakov Avinu. So too Yaakov Avinu. Im hacholosh koichoisa michol yayashem espa. Despite the fact that he was so weak and he was so sick because of the machla that ultimately took his life. Birech es Yosef. First he gave a bracha to Yosef. U'birech akach sharban of kula. And then he gave brachas to the rest of his children. Va'amar aleim, and he told them, "Hey, asfu va'agidu lechem v'goyma." Lefi shebe'esahi, because at that moment niftacho elov shari hachachmos. At that moment, the shari hachachmos opened up for Yaakov. V'hamoy nistaros, and all the secrets of the world were revealed to him. Va'az nadva ruchay legaloisam lebanav, and he wanted to be megala them to his children. But l'maisa didn't end up working out. He wanted to be Megal the Kates, that didn't work, but at the same time, he took advantage of the Toisef Rucham like his father Yitzchak did, like Moshe Rabbeinu would do in the future. Lefnei Moisei Samach L'misasai. He went ahead and he gave the bracha. He's Meirich. He says, Mneza Amru Chazal Mitzvah L'kaim Divrei Ames, because when a person's lying on his deathbed, the words that come out of his mouth are not pashit. There's an inyan of nevuah that's coming out of the person's mouth. And mitzvah l'kaim divrei hameis, you have to listen to what the person says, because it's not a pashit thing. It's true for everybody. Mitzvah l'kaim divrei hameis is not only true for a tzaddik. That's true for every single person in the world. But either way, this is this inyan. The inyan is that Yaakov Avinu was samach l'misasai. Yaakov Avinu was zoicha to this toisef rucham. Yaakov Avinu was right now b'pchina kilo yirani yodam v'chai. But at the same time, when a person's dying, then already he's able to see, and he wanted to use that to what? To comfort his children. That even though there's going to be a zman of galus, and by the way, the galus is about to start right now, right around now. Rashi says right at the beginning of Parshas Vayechi, Lama Parshas Ustuma. Lefisha kivan shenifta Yaakov Avinu nistamu einayim v'liban sheyisrael mitzaras hashibud. Yaakov Avinu understood that right now the tzaras hashibud is about to begin, and he wanted to comfort his kindlech, and he wanted to give them a little bit of chizik. So he said, "Let me be megala the kates to you. I could see right now, but it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be because our avodah is to be in galus and not to know when the end is going to come. It's to wait." Yaakov Avinu, like a father, like a Zayda, he wanted to throw us the ultimate bone. He wanted to give us this nechama, this chizuk. We could have a date circled on our calendars. Like this, we know when the kate is going to come. That wasn't meant to be. But at the same time, what he did do was, he gave his children brachas. He gave them brachas. He gave us the koiches. He gave us what we need to be able to survive through that galus, to survive through the tzaras hashibud that was about to begin, to survive and to persevere. Either way, we're getting towards the very, very, very end already of Sefer Shemos. Right, when you finish a Sefer Bereshis, when you finish a Sefer in Chumash, it's not Hadron Alach, it's Chazak, V'nis Chazek. So we could feel it already. Either way, we're going to stop here, and Be'ez Hashem, we're going to finish Sefer Bereshis in the next year.